On this video, I'm going to answer a question absolutely loads of you have been asking me at the moment, and that question is to whether DJI will ever give us the option for Android devices to switch off the automatic charging, or at least give us the option to toggle it on or off when you are plugging it into a DJI controller. So let's get into it. So to understand why we are actually answering this question, we need to do a little bit of a history lesson. A few months ago, DJI launched a version of their DJI Fly at 1.4.2, something that I covered on this channel, and on that version they actually took away for iOS devices the option to charge their device. Now, some of iOS users were absolutely extremely happy. The reason for that is because they didn't want the controller to be draining their phone, and some were quite upset because for the complete opposite reason, the battery was draining very, very fast. So it seems an ideal situation would be to just go back to what it was. However, DJI thought differently, and when they launched the latest version, they brought back the mandatory charging with no option to switch it on or off. Again, this actually angered or pleased some iOS users for the same reasons as before. Some people wanted it on, some people wanted it off, and basically it was a complete switcheroo and a role reversal. Okay, so when DJI launched a version of the latest version, actually 1.4.8 of the DJI Fly, for some strange reason, a lot of YouTubers actually started posting videos to say there was a problem with the app and that it was causing their iOS device, such as iPhone 12 Max was the one that was primarily the area of concern, and causing it to overheat. Okay, now I'm not entirely sure why some people was saying it was down to the app version 1.4.8, when very simply nothing had changed from the previous version where charging was actually stuck on anyway. There was no change to the voltage or the ampage or the milliamps. There was no change to the charging voltage. However, I do fully 100% understand that many of you was having problems when it came to their iPhone devices, very simply because this option for the controller charging the iPhone was now fixed on. What was happening is the iPhone devices seem to be going into some sort of safety mode, especially on hot sunny days, caused by the extra heat from the mandatory charging that the DJI controller was now putting out to the phone, and causing the screen to dim. Basically meaning that the remote pilot could barely see the device screen and therefore see what they're doing. Of course, I completely agree this was a huge safety issue. However, like I said, my only little confusion myself is the fact that obviously mandatory charging had been on the previous version, so I don't know why many people started saying it was down to that latest version 1.4.8. However, it was here and it was a problem, and thankfully DJI on iOS devices have now fixed the option and basically gone back to square one and given the option to turn charging on or off. Okay, so now that history lesson is over, let's now look at the actual option on Android and whether the option to turn it on or off for us will actually come. Now, firstly, I need to mention a particular channel, and this was another YouTuber by the name of Nobby Green, who actually he actually did the research when it comes to DJI themselves, and when he had a problem with his iPhone, he actually contacted DJI because many people had asked him also, just like they had me, whether this option was coming to Android. He reached out to me and said, look, I've got this information, do you want to do a video on it? I actually some sort of mulled it over for a couple of days, and in the past couple of days, I've been yet again receiving more and more comments from you guys as to whether this option will eventually come, and it seems I've decided to just do this video, so hopefully it answers some of your questions. So let's look entirely what happens when you plug an Android device into the DJI controller then. So what happens is you have your Android device, such as your phone. This is an old Samsung phone of mine that I have just laying around. Then, of course, you have your controller. Now, if you just take your device, if you plugged some earphones into your device or anything like that, okay, what would happen is this phone, of course, would be the driver as such as to your earphones, and then what would happen is your earphones would become and be the accessory. However, when it comes to the DJI controller, things are a little bit different. Now, part of the Android build, or part of the operating system itself, is something called Android Open Accessory, okay? Now, this DJI controller actually falls into that category. Now, when we are talking about Android Open Accessory, or AOA, that basically sets a set amount of parameters which governs the connection between your controller and your phone. Now, what essentially happens is a complete reversal of what I've just said. Now, when you plug your device into the controller, under this AOA sort of protocol, it's actually the controller that becomes the driver, if you wish, okay? And the phone then becomes the accessory. All right, now just to show you a quick example of this, you can see on screen that when you have got your controller plugged into your Android phone, when you turn your controller on, it will automatically open up the DJI Fly app on your Android device. And that's because it is this device which is doing the controlling. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. Now, for this communication line to work and remain open the way that it does, and which allows this to be the controller and this to be the accessory, the Android Open Accessory protocol states that this device must put out a charging current of 500 milliamps at 5 volts to keep that line of communication open. So to answer the question you are here for then, as to whether DJI can give us, through their Fly app, the option to turn the charging on or off, the simple answer is no. And the reason for that is, as I've just mentioned, the charging current is demanded and part of the connection protocol to enable these two to actually talk to each other. Unfortunately, guys, that answers your question. DJI will never be able to give us the charging option on or off, because it is absolutely needed to establish the connection between the controller and the device. Of course, iOS works completely different, so that is not so much of a problem. So hopefully that answers the question. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon.